the world of online visibility is intense, isn't it? Ranking high, keeping track of where you stand, competitors. It feels less like a simple climb and more like, navigating this constantly shifting landscape.
Absolutely. Especially now, 2025, where search results are just so dynamic, so personalized.
Right. So how do you possibly keep a handle on what's actually happening on those pages, like right now?
Well, trying to track all of that manually it's just not feasible anymore. Not really.
No way.
The sheer volume, the speed it all changes, needing to check from different places. It's genuinely impossible to get the full picture with just human effort.
Right. And that's exactly where our deep dive today comes in. We're talking about automated tools built for this precise challenge, SERP scrapers. We've been digging into a whole stack of sources, articles, research, tool reviews, exploring what these things are, why they're becoming so, essential right now, and which ones are sort of leading the pack.
Yeah, and our goal here is to pull out the really crucial insights from all that. So by the end of this, you should have a really solid grasp on what SERP scrapers are, why they matter so much for digital strategy today, the smart ways to use them so you don't, hit roadblocks.
Right, avoid getting blocked.
Exactly. And what kinds of features you should look for in the tools themselves. Think of it as getting the distilled version without having to wade through it all yourself.
Perfect. So let's start right at the beginning. SERP stands for Search Engine Results Page. That's the page you get after you type something into Google or Bing or whatever.
Yep.
So what is a SERP scraper then specifically?
Okay, so at its core, a SERP scraper is an automated program, often called a bot or maybe a spider.
Okay.
And it's designed specifically to extract data from those pages, the search results.
So they're not just like visiting the page like I would. How do they actually get the data out?
They go a bit deeper. Instead of just looking at the visual page, they're built to parse the underlying HTML code.
Parse the HTML? Like reading the code behind the page?
Exactly, like reading the structural blueprint. And that lets them identify and pull out specific bits of data in a structured way.
Okay, reading the blueprint. So what kind of specific info can they actually grab from that HTML?
Well, our sources list quite a range. Fundamentally, organic search rankings, where different sites appear for keywords.
Yeah, the main rankings.
But also details about the paid ads on the page titles themselves, the URLs, meta descriptions, and importantly, data from all those extra SERP features.
Like the people also ask. Boxes, featured snippets, shopping results, all that stuff that keeps changing the layout.
Precisely. All that really rich information that just clicking around wouldn't capture and organize for you. So instead of you manually checking page 1, page 2, page 3.
For hundreds of keywords.
Across 5 different cities.
On Google and Bing.
Yeah. The scraper just automates that whole process. It's really the only way to collect this data consistently and, at the speed and scale you need today. Manual just can't keep up.
Got it. Automating data collection from SERPs. Yeah. Makes sense. But you said they're essential in 2025. Why the urgency? Why now? What's changed?
Well, the whole competitive landscape online has just accelerated so much. If you want to make informed decisions about your SEO, your ads, your whole presence, you absolutely need real-time, accurate data.
The delay for manual checking is just too long.
It's way too long. And the sources really dive into the specific ways this data gets used.
Okay, like what?
So it's fundamental for doing deep SEO analysis, really understanding why things are ranking the way they are.
Right.
It's used constantly for tracking your own keyword rankings or maybe your clients' rankings over time.
Sure.
It's vital for competitor monitoring, seeing how their rankings shift, maybe new ads they're running, the keywords they're going after. This data also helps spot emerging market trends just by watching how search results change. And critically, it gives you insights into local search results.
Oh yeah, the local piece is huge. Trying to figure out how your business ranks in different neighborhoods manually. That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. And the search engines themselves, they're constantly tweaking their interfaces, adding new features. Scrapers are built to adapt, to make sure you capture all the relevant data points, even when the SERP layout changes.
So if you're serious about optimizing how you appear, online marketer, business owner, agency, whoever.
Yeah, having access to this real-time structured SERP data isn't just helpful anymore. The source is basically painted as a prerequisite for effective strategy today.
Okay, the value is definitely clear.
Well,
But you mentioned earlier, search engines don't necessarily love a flood of automated tools hitting their servers. What's the risk there?
that's the flip side, yeah. Search engines like Google, they're smart. They have systems designed to detect and, well, block automated activity that looks unnatural or puts too much strain on their resources. It's this ongoing technological arms race.
An arms race, okay. And if you get caught on the crossfire, what happens?
The sources highlight a few potential consequences. It could be temporary or even permanent IP blocks.
Meaning you just can't access search results from that IP anymore.
Exactly. Or it could be more severe issues, potentially even legal headaches, depending on how much you're scraping, how you're doing it, and if you're violating their terms of service.
Okay, so using these tools effectively means understanding how to play by certain unwritten rules, maybe, to avoid detection.
Pretty much.
What strategies do the sources recommend? How do you minimize the chances of getting blocked?
Okay, several key techniques come up repeatedly. First one, IP address rotation.
IP rotation.
Yeah. If every single request you send comes from the exact same IP address, it basically screams bot.
Right. Looks suspicious.
So by rotating through a big pool of different IP addresses, each request looks like it's coming from a unique, different user.
Yeah.
Makes it much harder for search engines to flag you based on those IP patterns.
That makes sense. You blend in by using lots of different identities, essentially.
Exactly. Then there's user agent simulation.
User agent.
Your web browser sends this little string of text called a user agent that tells the website what browser and OS you're using, like Chrome on Windows or Safari on a Mac.
Huh?
Bots often have really generic or easily identifiable user agents. Good scrapers will mimic real browsers, cycling through lots of different legitimate user agent strings, again, to appear like normal web traffic.
So now you look like many different browsers coming from many different places.
Precisely. And then there's mimicking human behavior. This is a big one.
How so?
Bots are typically very fast, very predictable. Humans aren't.
True.
So this involves adding random delays between your requests. You know, you wouldn't click, click, click at the exact same microsecond interval.
Right.
It might also involve randomizing how you interact with the page if you're using more advanced tools that simulate clicks or scrolls. And crucially, limiting the overall rate of your requests. Don't hammer the server.
Okay, slow down, be a bit random, look less like a machine.
Basically, yeah, more like a person browsing, perhaps a bit erratically.
What about those prove you're not a robot tests? The CAPTCHAs.
Yep, handling CAPTCHAs is definitely part of the picture. Some advanced tools or dedicated services can actually recognize and solve CAPTCHAs automatically.
Wow.
Though the sources do note this is often more of a reactive measure. You're dealing with the block after you've been flagged, rather than trying to prevent the flag in the first place.
Got it. So it helps, but avoiding the flag is better.
Ideally, yes. And there's also a really important point about just respecting the source you're scraping from.
How do you mean?
Respecting website policies. It's crucial. You should check the website's terms of service and also look at their robots.txt file.
Robots.txt.
It's a standard file web owners use to signal to bots which parts of their site they'd prefer aren't accessed automatically. Following these guidelines isn't just, good digital citizenship.
Right.
It helps you avoid overloading their servers, which is a surefire way to get blocked. And it keeps you on the right side ethically and potentially legally, too.
Makes sense. Be a good neighbor. And finally, what if the content isn't all there in the first HTML load? You mentioned dynamic pages, JavaScript.
Right. That's where using headless browsers comes in. Many modern web pages, and definitely dynamic SERP features, load content using JavaScript after the initial page loads.
So a basic scraper would miss that stuff.
Totally. A standard scraper just reads that initial HTML source. A headless browser is basically a regular web browser like Chrome or Firefox, but without the visual part you see.
Okay.
It actually renders the page, runs all the JavaScript, loads all the dynamic content just like your browser does. Then the scraper can see and extract everything that a human user would eventually see.
Okay, so it lets the page fully build itself before scraping.
Exactly.
So combining all these things, rotating IPs, faking browser types, acting more human, dealing with CAPTCHAs if needed, respecting the rules, and using headless browsers for the tricky pages. That's the secret sauce for reliable scraping.
That's pretty much it. It massively increases your success rate, your consistency, and drastically cuts down the chances of hitting those frustrating blocks. It's all about appearing as legitimate and non-disruptive as possible.
Got it. Okay, so let's say someone needs this data. They understand the techniques to stay under the radar. How do they actually pick a tool? There must be loads out there. What did the sources say to look for?
Yeah, there are definitely options. The key criteria that came up were, first, reliability. Does it consistently get you the data you need?
Makes sense.
Strong anti-blocking capabilities are obviously paramount. This is where those techniques we just talked about need to be really well implemented by the tool.
Right. The tool needs to handle that complexity for you.
Exactly. The tool should also deliver structured results. You don't want just raw HTML soup. You need the data organized, usually in formats like JSON or maybe tables, so it's easy to use.
Okay, usable data format.
And, critically, for many use cases, extensive location coverage or really granular geo-targeting, especially if you care about local search results.
Right, checking rankings from specific cities or regions.
Yeah.
What about performance, speed, accuracy?
Yep, definitely look for high success rates. The sources mention over 99% as a good benchmark for a reliable service.
Over 99%, wow.
Yeah, and fast data delivery is important too, especially for real-time analysis. Response times mentioned in the range of, say, 0.8 seconds up to maybe 6 seconds are considered pretty performant in the space.
Okay.
Ultimately, though, your choice is going to depend on the scale of your project, your budget. You have to balance the cost against the reliability and the specific features you really need.
Right, find the right fit. Now, the sources reviewed several specific tools, didn't they? Each with slightly different angles or strengths. Maybe we can touch on a few as examples.
Absolutely, good idea. First up, ZenRows. This one was positioned as kind of an all-in-one solution.
Okay. What's its main thing?
Its big strength seems to be its robust AI anti-blocking system. It's designed to automatically handle things like CAPTCHAs, WAFs, those are web application firewall, security layers sites use, and also IP blocks. They claim a very high success rate, like 99.9%.
That's impressive.
And it delivers structured data, JSON or HTML, supports JavaScript rendering with a built-in headless browser, and covers over 190 countries for geotargeting.
So, sounds super reliable on the anti-blocking front. Maybe the cons are potential cost if you're just starting or have really small needs, trial limits.
That's generally the trade-off, yeah. Then there's Zyte API. This one is described more as a comprehensive API for web scraping in general, but it definitely handles SERP data too. It focuses on automatic ban handling and has a built-in headless browser, which is great for those complex dynamic pages.
Good for JavaScript-heavy sites then.
Yeah, and it uses AI for parsing, trying to turn the raw HTML into structured data for you. Offers geo-targeting by country.
Okay, so good for scale, good for dynamic content, but maybe that AI parsing is a bit dependent on the specific site you're scraping. And pricing might be complex.
Could be. Yeah, the sources hinted at that. Next, Dakoto SERP scraping API. Their focus seems to be strongly on real-time data and automating that whole anti-blocking process. Proxies, CAPTCHAs, ban avoidance, all handled for you.
Okay, automated anti-blocking.
A standout feature mentioned was their guaranteed 100% success rate for standard SRP data requests.
100% guaranteed. That's bold.
It is. They also offer incredibly granular geotargeting, not just 195 plus countries, but specific states, cities, and even down to latitude, longitude coordinates.
Wow. Coordinate level targeting is amazing for hyperlocal stuff.
Definitely. And it offers flexible output, JSON, HTML, or even parse tables. Average response times were noted around 5-6 seconds.
So pros, that high accuracy, powerful geotargeting seems user-friendly. Cons mentioned were maybe slightly slower responses than some others, and no pay-as-you-go plan.
That's what the review suggested, positioned as cost-effective and very reliable overall.
Okay. Next up, Oxylab's SERP Scraper API. Oxylab's a big name.
They are, and their SERP Scraper API is part of their broader web scraping platform, noted for reliability, fetching real-time data from 195 countries.
And they do more than just Google.
Yeah, that's a key point. They explicitly mention scraping multiple engines: Google, Bing, Baidu, Yandex.
Useful if you operate internationally.
For sure. They also push their AI-driven features, things like OxyCopilot for code assistance, using MLAI for block bypassing. Plus, they have the headless browser and granular geo-targeting down to city or coordinate. Average response under 10 seconds.
Sounds like a very feature-complete, maybe more enterprise-focused option. Potential for higher cost, maybe a bit more setup involved.
That seems like a fair summary based on the description. Now, this last one is really important to distinguish: Affmaven.
Affmaven, how is it different?
It's fundamentally different. The others we talked about provide an API that goes and gets the data for you. Affmaven provides the essential infrastructure, specifically high-quality residential and mobile proxies that you need if you're building or running your own scraper.
Ah. Okay, so they don't do the scraping, they provide the clean pipes. The reliable IP addresses that your scraping software would use to avoid getting blocked.
Precisely. Their whole strength is the quality of their proxy network. They talk about advanced IP filtering to get like 95% clean IPs.
Sticky sessions.
Sticky sessions.
Meaning you can keep the same IP address for a sequence of requests, sometimes up to 24 hours. That can be helpful for certain scraping tasks that require maintaining a consistent session.
Okay.
And they also have extensive granular geo-targeting, 150 plus countries, over 1,400 cities.
So if you have your own scraping tech stack, Affmaven gives you that crucial layer of reliable geolocated IPs to make it actually work consistently.
That's exactly their niche. The pros are that superior IP quality, those sticky sessions, the granular geo. The con is, well, it's not the full scraping solution itself, and the pricing might be higher for very low volume use compared to an all-in-one API.
That rundown is incredibly helpful. Really shows the spectrum, doesn't it? From the full-service APIs doing everything to the core infrastructure providers like Affmaven.
Yeah, different tools for different needs. So pulling this all together then, what's the main thing someone should really take away from this deep dive into SRP scrapers in 2025?
I think the absolute key takeaway is just how critical this data has become. In today's super dynamic, super competitive online world, having access to real-time structured data from search results is, well, it's a must-have, not a nice-to-have anymore.
Right. And SERP scrapers are pretty much the only scalable way to get that info needed for effective digital strategy.
That's it. But
they're not a magic bullet. You have to use them smartly. You need to understand the techniques to avoid getting blocked by search engines that are actively trying to stop you.
yes, exactly. Mastering those strategies, we discussed IP rotation, user agents, mimicking human behavior that's essential for getting reliable data consistently.
And finally, understand that there isn't one single best tool out there.
No, definitely not. There's a variety of really powerful options, offering different mixes of strengths, anti-blocking, geo-targeting, speed, structure, price. The right choice really depends on your specific needs, your budget, and the scale of data you require.
This has been a fantastic exploration, really unpacking a critical tool in the modern digital toolkit. Thanks so much for walking us through the sources on this.
My pleasure. Glad it was helpful.
And thank you for joining us for this deep dive into SERP scrapers. As we wrap up, maybe chew on this thought. You've got search engines constantly building more sophisticated defenses against automated tools.
Always evolving.
And you got the scraping tools constantly evolving their methods to adapt and bypass those defenses. What does this ongoing technological arms race really mean for the future of accessing public web data at scale? And how might that constant tension shape your own strategies for gathering competitive intelligence and market insights down the road? It's a pretty fascinating challenge to think about.
It really is.
Until next time.